Welcome back to Rated Radio, and in the wonderful state of Oklahoma, with your hosts, Rayburn Alexander and Shane Wyndham.
I'm sick, but I'm here.
Shane, what was the Billboard hit that we covered this week?
It was One Right Now by Post Malone and The Weeknd.
Why don't you tell me what you thought about that?
Can you imagine Post Malone and The Weeknd dropping a collaboration that's anything less than a 5?
I cannot.
Good news is you don't have to, because this is amazing, just as you'd expect. Unless you're wildly opposed to danceable tracks or ones with explicit and vindictive lyrics, this is going to appeal to you, assuming you enjoy either of these artists.
Yeah, these two artists are visionaries in their own genres, but when they come together for this track, it exceeds mediocre expectations. Both Post and The Weeknd seem to manage to pay tribute to past genres while simultaneously making the mashup their own. 5 space-tastic stars, in my opinion.
Have you been drinking?
Maybe a little.
Let's roll the intro.
Shane, are you driving this big rocktastic big rig, or am I?
No, I'm in the cabin and chilling. This is you.
All right. Honk, honk, bitches. First artist that we covered was Aerosmith, and first album that we covered was Toys in the Attic from 1975. This was my middle album.
This was my bottom album.
I gave it 2 5s out of 9 tracks.
4.
My top track was Sweet Emotion.
I'd have to agree with that.
Solid. And my bottom track was Round and Round.
Uncle Salty.
And this is not Rats, Round and Round, which would probably garner a 5 from me.
Spoiler
alert. What about Mr. Salty did you not dig on?
I don't remember right now.
Awesome.
It's been a long set of weeks here.
All right, what I'll say about the album is this is classic 70s rock. It has some southern roots instrumentally. Vocals from Steve Tyler can sometimes be hard to understand, like we all know and love so much about him. But the music seems straight out of Dazed and Confused. I mean, that scene where the car slow motion comes into the frame, that's what I think of every time I hear Sweet Emotion in my head, so it just fits perfectly.
By the way, just to throw this out there, if it sounds weird, it's because we are sitting in a smoking library room in some massive, ridiculously expensive cabin.
It is the coolest thing, though. I wish that we could record in places like this at all times, like exposed brick, the largest bookshelf behind us. It's incredible. I just want to light up a stogie and partake, you know. You feel me?
Stogie, all right. Yeah. As far as the album goes, for obvious reasons, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that Floyd's Wish You Were Here came out the same year. And while this group's influence on the future of music is completely obvious, some of it hasn't aged well. You get tons of Stones influence on this album. Otherwise, this is pre-Aerosmith's sweet spot. Most of it has already been milked for its best offerings. Solid, though.
I'm going to piggyback off of your comment about a lot of Stones influence. Because they were almost written off completely in the beginning of their career as being a Rolling Stones cover band. So I think you hit the nail right on the head, especially with their earlier contributions.
Yes.
That comparison. Next album that we covered was Permanent Vacation from 1987. This was my bottom album.
This was my middle album.
I gave it 3 5s out of 12 tracks.
10.
And my top track was Angel.
Agreed.
Nice. I'm liking this. And my bottom track was The Movie.
I'm Down.
All right.
Was my bottom.
For me, this is a lot of the same sounds as the first album that we covered. Added production value and blues sounds throughout. They sort of garnered a little bit of recognition with their first couple of albums, Toys in the Attic being one of them. A lot more faster paced. It seemed like they increased the speed of their music to keep up with the fast moving times of the 80s.
Okay. By this time, the group had evolved into one unafraid of embracing popular song structures while continuing to make seriously good rock tracks. It still leans into Stones and even Beach Boys sounds at times, but the disc exceeded my expectations by a giant margin. I really enjoyed this disc.
I will say, and I know I always say it, I mean, I was in charge of... No. Yeah, I was in charge of picking the Aerosmith albums, if I recall. We kind of mutually agreed on the next artists that we covered. Looking at Aerosmith's discography, looking at their dicks. I'm sure everybody's seen them. Looking at their discography, there's so much that we missed here with the selections that we made, but I wanted to make sure that I covered the tip of the iceberg, the very most important tip, if you get what I'm saying. But, Just Push Play is not on here. Dude Looks Like a Lady, I don't think is on here. So they have Jaded, which put them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's so much that we didn't cover, and I'm looking forward to expanding on that a little bit more. But we're not here to talk about that. Are you ready to move on to the next album?
And again, a reminder that there are 16 people above our heads right now. So,
yes.
Next album.
All right. The next album that we covered was 9 Lives from 1997. This is my top album.
Agreed.
I gave it 4 5s out of 13 tracks.
12.
Nice. Solid. My top track was Full Circle.
Hole in My Soul.
And my bottom track was Taste of India.
Mine was Crash. I have to say, though, I love your bottom track. I also really love your top track, for what it's worth.
Shane loves everything.
What were your thoughts? This was a... I know this album really well. Mm-hmm. This was pivotal in my life, so...
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
This is more added harmonica. Guess what, everybody? Steven Tyler found a harmonica, and he's blowing the fucking shit out of it. This experiments a bit more with different genres, more songs about love, more carefree. Like I said, this was my top album. It has full right to be my top album.
Think Aerosmith of the previous album we covered, but with more pop balladry and hints of Chili Peppers showing up on occasion. It's not as musically impressive as Permanent Vacation and has a rather off-putting intro, but the more you listen, the better it gets, and when you're in the right mood, this disc is a really good time. Cut the first 15 seconds in the 9th track, and this thing would be a pretty perfect experience in my opinion.
So what you're telling me is I would get to do a but because of that, I don't get to do a
Right.
All right. A couple things I want to say about Aerosmith that people may or may not know. Aerosmith is the best-selling American rock band of all time with more than 70 million albums sold in the U.S. Originally, they were called Jam Band. That's Jam Band. Until the group we know was constructed, and they changed the name due to one of the members liking the way it sounded when he was a kid. So,
okay.
I just thought that was cool. Yeah. What do you got, Shane?
Steven Tyler is Liv Tyler's dad.
Oh, yeah. What?
As far as album art goes, 9 Lives once had a different cover than what you see on Spotify. This music makes me feel like I'm having a blast traveling the world. My first experience with Aerosmith was What It Takes, the song What It Takes, one of my first musical memories. It's easy to see how this group landed its own Guitar Hero game. We covered albums that were 22 years apart and still impressive. Hell, they actually got better as we went on. I love the inclusion of harmonica and world instruments, plus the way Tyler's voice evolved. A great listen for a band we tend to unfairly leave to the dustbin of musical memory. If it's been a while, bring this group back into your life.
Fun fact, Steven Tyler shares a birthday with my mother. If I didn't say that, she would disown me. So,
yeah, they rock and manage lightheartedness the way few rock outfits do.
Nice.
So I really dig Aerosmith if you're missing the train here. Anyway.
I think the feeling is very mutual, but let's take a break and get to our next artist.
By the way, as a reminder before we move on, Aerosmith was my sister Laura's, one of her top 10 artists, and Guns N' Roses is one of my Aunt Jennifer's top 10 artists. Mm-hmm. So quite a week But we're here to talk about a song list and some stories right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have?
Well, I do believe you chose top 10 songs drunk people love.
That's
And
accurate as fuck.
after seeing your list, I know you exceeded the top 10 songs category, and I'm pretty sure you listed 30?
50.
50, of course.
I always make like a preliminary list and then I chop it down.
Yeah.
This one just felt wrong to chop.
Okay.
I started moving the pieces into place, like how you would listen to it and how it would come back around.
Once you get into it, it's kind of hard to stop. So just for, our purposes, I'm going to stop saying top 10 lists because I think that's unfair to us to stay within the confines of top 10.
I rarely do 10.
So I'm just going to say top songs drunk people love.
Yep. So what'd you pick for your story?
I picked Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. Recently, I ventured into the vast unknown of vacationing during the pandemic. And while a bit nerve-wracking at times, my single reward was being a part of a unprovoked drunken sing-along to this amongst roughly 100 other strangers in a theater the last night of our adventure. It truly was a moment of the music bringing us together all at one time.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, it was nice. It was, completely unprovoked, but everyone was tickled at the fact that we all were in the same thought process.
Good sing-along song.
Drink packages help tremendously,
imagine.
I highly recommend anyone getting them.
I went with Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Firstly, yes, my list has 50 tracks in total. It's meant to be played in full over a good night of drinking with good people. Deal with it. Anyway, story time. Once upon many moons ago, I was slightly obsessed with learning to play this song on guitar, from beginning to end, on an acoustic. We're all a bit masochistic, right?
Yeah, just a little.
I finally got it down, debuted the insanity for some friends at a party, only to have a certain drunk bastard, who shall remain nameless, challenge me to play the song better than him on Guitar Hero 3, something I failed miserably at. And everyone got such a kick out of it that my actual musical achievement quickly became old hat. It was as though my inexperience with the Guitar Hero version of the track invalidated my ability to legitimately play the fucking song in question. It soured me on the tune to the point that I can barely remember how to play any of this classic on a real guitar now.
That's a big old fucking bummer. You kind of got foreshadowed. Guitar Hero, as fun as it may be, that's not real. That's not real. Come on, guys.
I remember being deeply involved, and it felt pretty real at the time, even for someone who plays real guitar.
Yeah.
I get it.
You should have challenged that person, who shall remain nameless, to something else just to be a dick.
Should have.
You should have.
I don't even think we were playing on expert. Anyway, before we move on, no one conquered my challenge in the last episode.
Did we have any attempts?
No.
Okay.
No, we
you
did
guys,
not.
Come on. You guys step up.
Yep. Everybody's afraid to come at me.
You're provoking the hate just a little. You're poking the bear a little bit. You realize that, right?
I do.
Okay.
But this means I'm taking a bonus artist pick this season.
Whoa. We did not agree to this.
No, we did not. My challenge. To be clear, the challenge remains open. If you want to handpick an artist for us to cover in season 8.
No. Someone please stop him this season.
Anyway, my pick is going to be Lords of Acid.
That could have been worse.
Technically a Corey recommendation, and I have them pitted against Peaches. May this be a lesson to all of you that participation is important.
It got worse, guys. It got worse.
Look forward to that episode later in the season.
I do not want to deal with you during a Peaches episode. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next artist?
Yeah, let's talk about Guns N' Roses. So, Rayburn, what albums did we cover by Guns N' Roses?
The albums that we covered by Guns N' Roses, first up is Appetite for Destruction from 1987. This was my top album.
Same.
I mean, come on. It's GNR. This is it. I gave them 3 5s out of 12 tracks.
12. Yeah, it's funny because I don't remember this being. I
good.
remember I love this album. I always have. I just don't remember listening to like every track seriously and thinking it was great. I was an idiot in my younger days. Let me just say that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it.
Certain someone in the room here.
No, I mean, that's up for debate. Yeah, I didn't give anything on this album lower than a 3. And if you've been listening to the show, you know that's pretty high praise for me. My 5s are harder to come by just because of the fact that I gave 3 doesn't really translate.
Yeah, our scales are different.
Yeah.
What was your top track?
My top track is Mr. Brownstone.
I was torn between Night Train and Rocket Queen.
Really?
I don't know why that song just will not leave me alone lately.
Okay. You ready for me to make you mad about my bottom track?
Go ahead.
It's Anything Goes.
Mine was Think About You.
Okay.
I don't...
Right. Still give it a 5,
I could see why someone would feel that way.
This is, for me, gruff vocals, but a bit more of a variety of range than Steven Tyler's contributions. Guitar is nice / definitely knows his stuff. I enjoyed the pace of the music. Classic 80s rock. If you were creating any sort of 80s rock playlist, the fact that GNR doesn't make that list is a crime against humanity, and you really need to reevaluate your classifications for 80s rock.
Yeah. It's a timeless rite of rock passage. The album is a masterclass in both melody and riff interplay. The production is crisp and crunchy, a rare instance of a group hitting the scene in its final and strongest form. Kiss meets Van Halen, and an obvious precursor to the decade of 90s metal, which would follow. The
craziest thing is this was their debut.
Yeah.
This was debut. This is out the gate. They were not fucking around with Appetite for Destruction.
It's like if Mike Tyson's first fight was,
where he bit.
Not where he bit.
Oh, okay. Are you? Because he didn't fuck around when it came to that. What is it? Holyfield? Evander Holyfield?
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm going to say that's accurate. If
I was
that's
trying to
not,
think
please
of
let
the
me
belt
know.
because I'm a dumbass.
Okay.
I realized I didn't know his weight class, so I'm just going to back off and leave it alone.
Back. All right.
I got in over my head just now.
Next album that we covered was Use Your Illusion 2 from 1991. This was my bottom album.
This was my middle pick.
I gave it 5 5s out of 14 tracks.
7.
My top track was Don't Cry.
Civil War. And
my bottom track was My World.
Very much agreed. What the fuck?
Okay, so...
ICP meets Korn.
Exactly. I said ICP-ish short. So, okay. So we were on the same page.
Yeah. Also worth pointing out that Don't Cry is the alternate version. Here.
Of what?
The song also appears on Use Your Illusion 1.
Oh, okay.
That's the radio hit that you might know.
Okay. Well, see, yeah, if you notice, we covered Use Your Illusion 2 instead of 1. There's 2 albums that...
You don't say,
There's 2. What I want to say about this album is this is more emotional and even Southern sounding in a way to me. Reminiscent, are you ready, of Queensryche on slower tracks, such as Civil War. Reminds me a lot of Queensryche. Don't come for me.
My note here, similar sounding songs and artists I wrote, lots of unexpected Queensryche vibes.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm learning something. Lyrics are much heavier this go around. It seems like whoever was writing them, because I didn't fact check, get off my dick. Going through some shit in a way.
I get the feeling that this set of LPs was meant to prove GNR were far more than some gang of rock and roll party boys. And this one certainly succeeds in presenting as a more mature outing than Appetite. It's also nicely eclectic, a bit underbaked in spots though. Wish they'd combined the best material from both Use Your Illusion discs. That may have topped Appetite.
Okay, all right.
But it's not the reality in which we find ourselves. So anyway.
We don't live in that reality, Shane. The next album that we covered by Guns N' Roses is Chinese Democracy from 2008. This was my middle album.
This was my bottom album.
I gave it 3 5s out of 14 tracks.
5.
My top track was This I Love.
Agreed.
And my bottom track was Raid in the Bedouins.
Yeah.
Was that right?
That's, I guess. I think it says Riyadh in the Bedouins.
I got Bedouins. I think that I should get something for that.
Okay.
This was a little more rough vocally, kind of Manson zombie-ish vibes. It may have been because it came out in 2008. They're tapping into more metal inspirations here, added more strings, which made it a little bit more interesting, structurally speaking.
Yeah, 15 years of silence after the release of a cover album?
Question mark?
It almost goes without saying that this isn't the same style you're likely used to from GNR. And while you really do notice the absence of Slash, this is not a bad album by any stretch. It does seem somewhat generic by way of comparison to their other original releases, but you can tell the remaining members, as well as their guests, poured a lot of love into this release. Better than many late-stage releases, I will definitely give it that.
A couple things I want to say about Guns N' Roses before we move on. Just to piggyback off of what we said to sort of justify our top album, Appetite is the best-selling debut rock album of all time to this day.
Imagine.
The names that they also considered for the band was Heads of Amazon and AIDS.
Both of those would not fly too well in the modern age.
I don't think so either. But they never won a Grammy, but were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012. And the band name comes from the names of the members, Axl Rose and a former roommate, Tracy Guns, who was a band member of the LA Guns.
Yeah.
So...
underrated. Anyway, they covered Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door here, which I like to mention because that is the cover that got me into Bob Dylan.
Most people don't know that's a Dylan cover.
Yeah. As far as concert performances go, Axl's infamous for being a stage queen.
Yes.
It makes for some interesting watches if you ever get online.
Yes, most definitely.
The music makes me feel like I'm hearing The Outsiders living long enough to form a rock band. Like the cast of the film, The Outsiders, or even the cast from the book.
Who's Slash?
Dude, I'm not. I'm not there right now. I'm sorry.
Like, you gotta think about these things. I'm gonna ask dumbass questions.
I would love to be, but I wasn't there. I feel like this group would appeal just as much to fans of The Clash as they would fans of Counting Crows. There's much more here than initially meets the eye. I could bitch that the chorus work is often their undoing, but they still land more winners than most of their contemporaries. Wonderful music to revisit, even after all these years. Plenty of roses amid the guns.
That's beautiful, Shane.
Yeah, bravo to me.
So who took it? So who took it for you?
That is a good question.
I always feel like I blindside you with this question, knowing damn well it's coming up every episode.
No, I mean, this was actually a close one, so it didn't stand out to me. Aerosmith won by 2 5s.
Well, I feel a little bit better because Guns N' Roses won for me. So I'm so glad that one of us can please my father. And let me tell you, it definitely wasn't me. Which is so funny because my father, as an infant, used to sing to me Sweet Child of Mine. That's like our song together. But he was really rooting for Aerosmith in this outcome. So sorry, Dad. Hate to disappoint you even more.
Yeah, Aerosmith has a lot more material than Guns N' Roses.
That's what I'm saying is we haven't even... This is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Aerosmith.
Be very curious to see if there was even a wrong way to go. Nah. You know, if we had picked anything.
This was an easy week for me. They're both wonderful artists, and any classic rock, whether it be 80s, 70s, whatever, if you're making a classic rock list, it would be a crime if you didn't include both of these artists.
True. So next week, before we close out here, we are covering what we drew from our jar.
Yep.
Which... I don't know how to feel about, or I didn't know how to feel about, I know now because I've listened, but I didn't have any experience with Jelly Roll, which was a top 10 artist from my Aunt Sandra, the Idaho Hillbillies' mom, for those of you who watch the Banter Bar. You love Corey there. This is his mom's pick, Jelly Roll. And I pitted that artist against Boondocks, which, and if you don't know what either of those artists are, tune in next time.
Welcome to my world.
But I'm supposed to tell you the albums too. So for Jelly Roll, we're going to cover No Filter from 2013, A Beautiful Disaster from 2020, and Self-Medicated, also from 2020, based on what I saw. Boondocks had The Harvest from 2006, Crimson Creek from 2008, and South of Hell from 2010.
All right. Tune in next episode where I talk about more shit that I don't know what I'm talking about. So...
That's your outro now?
That's my outro. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Hit up our playlist on Spotify. Visit our merch shop. Share our show with your friends. Come find us on social media and let us know what you think. And until next time, fill your world with music.
And rent yourself a cabin. Come on, live a little.